Okay, so WandaVision has left a lot of people with a lot of questions. No one knows what's going on in Westview. What's happening with the twins? No, not them, you dirty bad boy. Who's controlling Wanda, how Vision is alive, and so on. If you're one of those people who's showing visible confusion, then this is the video for you. Throughout it, we're going to be giving our best theories based on the comics, whilst also answering what we know about the series so far. Obviously, there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't seen up to episode 3, then I recommend that you reset right now. If you enjoy the video, then it'd be swell if you hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for breakdowns like this each and every day. With that out of the way, I'm your host Paul, welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show, now let's get into the video. Okay, so the biggest question hanging over the series is where exactly is Wanda and what's going on in Westview? Episode 3 actually gave us a big reveal in its ending, and we discovered that the town was indeed a real location that had been turned into the reality that we see Wanda and Vision living in. I've read theories that this might just be a Bob hologram, but the fact that the objects are tangible and from the outside everything seems okay makes me believe that the technology isn't being used here. Looking at the promotional images for episode 4, it's only upon entering it that things seem to change, whereas with Barf you can see it from no matter where you look at it. There was also a clip released of the Beekeeper character crawling through the membrane, and if you look closely at his clothing, you'll see that it only transforms upon passing through the invisible barrier. Therefore, we can confirm that Westview seems okay, and it's only when you enter that things start to get worse than 2020. This idea of it seeming okay from the outside and being messed up within, of course, carries over to the plot of the show itself, but we'll discuss that later in the video. Now, Westview itself has some pretty significant things in the name that make it the perfect location for a show like this. Not only do the initials W and V also stand for Wanda and Vision, but the name itself actually has TV in the middle. Wowza! It also seems like a suburban town in the middle of nowhere, and I actually think that one of the latest MCU movies highlights to us exactly what Wanda might be doing. Now, I'm someone who habitually always has the MCU on one TV in the house at all times. I've binged the movies more than I'd like to admit, but it was only with the context of this show that I noticed something different. You might remember that Avengers Endgame ends with Steve Rogers travelling back to an alternate 1950s to be with the one that he lost. I'm not crying. This is also very similar to Wanda, who travelled to a 1950s reality in order to be with the person she loved more than anything in the world. Clearly, there's parallels between the pair, and I personally believe that when old Joe Biden's Steve showed up at the end, that the Avengers eventually managed to pry open the truth from him, and this then inspired Wanda to try something similar. As much as the radio messages from S.W.O.R.D. make it seem like she's the one being manipulated, the series itself does show that she is in control. When the Beekeeper arrives, she easily rewinds time, and then when Vision starts to question things, she too snaps him out of it, completely derailing his train of thought. The way she threw Monika out of the reality was nothing short of spellbinding, and it's clear that she's been able to bend and manipulate things at will. All the people in the show seem to be trapped there, and Dr. Nielsen did discuss how difficult it is to get away. Herb nearly let it slip that they were trapped, I think, and Mrs. Hart in episode 1 was almost on the verge of tears trying to save her husband whilst remaining in character. However, that doesn't mean that she's not being used, and so far the show has laid out several clues to us that the nefarious forces in this reality are aiming to manipulate her to their own ends. Now, though we don't know this for definite, it seems like all the signs there are pointing towards the people there being after her children, and the show looks like it has multiple villains. The first of them is, of course, Agnes. Yes, she's baddie, she's not your friend, she's a bad woman. Now, I've already made a video about who I think she really is, which goes into this theory and the evidence in more detail, but the long and short of it is that she's likely Agatha Harkness. Agatha has sort of gone back and forth over being a villain throughout the decades, but she has helped Wanda to enhance her powers. It is possible that in researching ways to get her Peggy Carter ending, that she crossed paths with the figure, and she helped her to build this dimension. In the comics, Agatha also went to Wanda and Vision when the pair had twins, and they just so happened to have the names Billy and Tommy. It was revealed that the pair were actually carrying the souls of demons, and I believe that Agnes has ulterior motives for aiding Wanda, and that she's actually been warping the reality in order to subliminally hint to Scarlet Witch that she needs to have kids. In episode 1, Vision's boss, Mr. Hart, nearly had a heart attack when asking why the pair didn't have any kids. The second episode was centered around an event for the children, and it all seemed to be driving home the idea that Wanda had to have them. We know from the promo of episode 4 that Agnes calls herself Auntie Agnes, and if you cast your mind back to the animated intro of episode 2, you may have noticed a sign in the supermarket that said Auntie A's. So clearly she's been pushing the idea that they should have children, and going off the source material, she may want to steal them so that she can serve them up to her masters. Now it's also possible that Agnes is in league with Hydra, or someone worse. No, not you, Dominic Cummings. Now, exploring the first option, the organisation have popped up at numerous points in the commercials, and even so far back as Winter Soldier, they were creating young and powerful people so that they could take over the world. They could also be after the Infinity Stones too, as the snap showed everyone just how powerful they were. We know from the Mind Stone in Vision's head that Wanda can indeed create them, and if you watch the commercials again with this in mind, they could also be subliminally hinting to her and the audience that she needs to rebuild them. The first commercial had a red flashing light, and typically red is associated with the Reality Stone. The second commercial centered around a watch, which could be hinting towards the Time Stone, and the third episode had a blue box, which may have been the Tesseract. That could be reaching, and it's not something I've dug my heels on just yet, but obviously by commercial 4 we'll have more of an idea. Now I believe that they made an alliance with Agnes to get her to make Wanda create the children and Infinity Stones, and from here they'll try and rise to power. We know from the Falcon and Winter Soldier first looks that Hydra are indeed in the series due to the yellow and green jumpsuits that were showcased in the first trailer, and thus it makes sense that they're back on the rise. Now Agnes could also be in league with a much darker and sinister figure, and that is Mephisto. She's referred to her husband Ralph quite a lot, but so far in the series we haven't actually seen him. Or so we think. Now the name Ralph actually means wolf, and it is possible that Satan himself is shapeshifted into certain animals in order to keep a close eye on things. In episode 2 we saw Agnes carrying around a rabbit, and in episode 3 the stork made an appearance. The latter was notable because it's the one thing so far that Wanda hasn't been able to control in the reality, and it seems like something else is indeed going on with it. Agnes also mentioned in episode 1 that her wedding anniversary was June 2nd, and this was actually the date that the first Salem witch trials took place. Could this mean that on the date the trials started, she pledged her undying love to Lucifer in order to be kept safe from harm? Well, I think so, and it would also tie in with the Demon Souls storyline, which the show has been influenced by. The series is also laced with satanic imagery and the idea of 666. There was of course the upside down cross that was also a sword symbol. The tentacles on the Hydra logo appear to have 666 in them. Hexagons also pop up at several points in the credits, and these have 6 sides, which, if you look closely enough, you'll see that it's a reach. Yep, it's another reach. Now another big question that people likely have is, how is Vision alive? Well, going back to the Vision and Scarlet Witch graphic novel, in that book, the Grim Reaper makes a big appearance. He has the ability to bring people back from the dead, and Mephisto and Agnes could have gone to him for help so that he could bring back the one thing that Wanda loved to keep her tied to this reality so they could steal her kids. His helmet did appear in the opening of episode 1, and I don't think that this would have been included if it had no significance. If we look at Agnes's pendant, there also appears to be 3 figures, and the one in the middle looks like it could be the classic depiction of the Grim Reaper holding a scythe above its head. So if our theory is right, then the 3 figures could represent her, Death, and the Devil, all who've made an allegiance together. Now as for who Billy and Tommy actually are, as mentioned earlier, they were demon soul babies that were meant to usher in generations of darkness that make 2020 look like 1999. Was that a good joke? I don't know, I was 11. Anyway, the point is that they have a precedence in the comics to be a certain way. However, Billy and Tommy is also the name of the children that Wanda and Vision had after that saga, and they went on to become the Young Avengers, Wiccan and Speed. I believe that the story for both might be combined, and after saving the babies, instead of them perishing, they'll go on to become the 2 mutants that Marvel maniacs absolutely love. And lastly, what is going on with Geraldine, or rather Monika? Well, after being tossed out of the reality, she landed at the Sword facility, and we know from the promo shots of episode 4 that she's likely investigating the bubble. If our theory about Hydra is correct, then it makes sense that S.W.O.R.D. would be used instead of S.H.I.E.L.D., as we already know that Hydra infiltrated their organisation from the Winter Soldier. Alongside her is Jimmy Woo, played by Randall Park, who you may remember from Ant-Man and the Wasp. The last time we saw him, he was keeping a close eye on Scott to make sure he didn't break the Sokovia Accords, and also learning some delightful magic tricks. Wanda is someone who also did that, not just the magic tricks, but broke the Sokovia Accords, so it could be possible that after the blip he was assigned to her, and then she went into the bubble dimension, which forced him to call in the big guns. In the comics, Monika is a person known as Photon who was blessed with incredible gifts, and she is likely going to get these powers at some point in the show. It's even possible that after being tossed through the membrane that she's picked them up, but for now we're going to have to wait until Friday to find out. Anyway, that's our big theories and all the answers we have so far, going off what clues have been left. I'd obviously love to hear your thoughts and whether you agree or not, so make sure you drop them in the comment section below. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of January, in which we're giving away 3 copies of The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings 4K box sets to our subscribers. All you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the theories. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of episode 3, which will be linked on screen right now. We picked apart the entire piece, so it's definitely worth checking out if you want more WandaVision, or if you're just bored because this lockdown's been never ending, in the UK at least. Anyway, with that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. You take care. A peace.